Winter is coming and you need to keep yourself warm, and what better way to keep yourself warm than with Fire Mage, the potential new meta range spec that hasn't ever been meta in the history of World of Warcraft. What am I talking about? Well, I am talking about Fire Mage in Dragonflight and why it is one of the most pure and fun ranged explosive DPS that you can play, with a little quick roundup on what Fire Mage is looking like going in to Dragonflight. And if you like these types of videos, consider hitting that subscribe button and like button and enable those notifications in this exact order, because it is a little cheat code to enable the channel to grow and we can actually do more content for you. And you'll also be notified by everything that we do, since we do different types of videos, as you may have noticed. And sometimes YouTube just doesn't really push these videos to you guys. So if you like it and you want to support us a little bit, those three things go a long way. Now, let's actually go into Fire Mage and why this is one of the better range DPS specs in the game. Now, if you have been following the channel for a while, or maybe not, you might know that I wasn't the biggest Fire Mage supporter, despite my name online. Irony. But it is actually better before, since I was never really a fan of a spec that puts all of its meatballs into like one cooldown and that's about it, and then it just drops off. Listen, combustion is still pretty strong and it does, you know, include the majority of your damage profile, but it's so not like the same. So I've come around to loving Fire Mage a lot more, hence I'm actually really interested in playing it like genuinely, as not just for the content and the channel. First of all, combustion now lasts longer with all of the additions that we've had throughout the course of Shadowlands. It seemed that, you know, a longer window for combustion is better for the Fire Mage in itself, obviously more fun. So I think right now with some of the standard builds you can get up to 12 seconds of combustion, which is pretty good. Not to mention that kindling is kind of always there. And this is kind of like the biggest gripe that I've always had with Fire Mage, and right now it just feels so good to have longer combustion windows and more often combustion windows, considering that you don't have to sacrifice the kindling mechanic as before with the previous talent trees, and the talent trees actually go a long way into making Fire Mage really good. Pretty much they do the biggest and the most amount of heavy lifting for the spec. And just if we're gonna like cover really quickly why this is such a good spec, it's so amazing because of the talent tree, let's really mention that even the general talents for the mage have some cool things that you can pick. I'm not gonna go into all of the frost and arcane utility that you can pick from the tree, but there are some interesting capstones that you can definitely get. Stuff like time anomaly and temporal displacement, which kind of work in conjunction with how your, you know, your bloodlust type mechanic, time warp, functions. Time anomaly being some of the wildest parts of the rotation that I've ever seen, where you can just randomly get a bloodlust effect or a combustion effect while just sitting there. It's kind of weird when it procs when you're outside of combat and just moving from one pack to the other, but when it does pack, it does make things a little bit interesting, where it's like, oh shit, let's do it. I have a couple of seconds of, you know, blasting a little bit, and definitely fills all of those windows of downtime between combustion windows all together, which is really cool. Obviously, double bloodlust is also particularly juicy. And going back into the combustion and why combustion is actually so much interesting is probably because of all the talents that go into it. So not to mention that the Fire Mage talent tree just, you know, gives you a lot of tools for combustion, a lot of tools for outside combustion. But during combustion, you have stuff like Alex Strauss's Fury, which, I mean, we kind of had it before, but you couldn't really always pick it because of, I think if I'm not mistaken, prior to this, you had to choose between this and Flame On, and Flame On was just a superior talent because it's Flame On. But now you can definitely get Flame On and don't have to sacrifice this. And I have to admit that this is one of my favorite talents in the Fire Mage spectrum, which is weird because it's not even a capstone. What Alex Strauss Fury does is makes Phoenix Flames and Dragon's Breath contribute to your combustion window, which is really cool. I mean, sure, it's kind of fun to, you know, blast Scorches during combustion to fill those downtimes between your fire blasts recharging and getting more fishing procs, but having Phoenix Flames is also really cool. Not to mention that if we're gonna be talking about this, we have to mention that Fire Blast is now the one to spread Ignite. Once again, their experiment in Shadowlands to use Phoenix Flames to spread Ignite was bleh. wasn't particularly ideal. Obviously, Ignite is no longer the monster that it was in BFA at the end in 8.3, where it was ticking for more than everybody else's DPS combined. But now Ignite actually feels a bit more interesting, and together with other stuff like Fervent's Flickering, Ignite has, I think it's a 5% chance per tick to refresh part of your Fire Blast cooldown. I think it's 5 seconds after out of your Fire Blast cooldown or something like that. Doesn't matter. But in AoE, where you have Ignite on a lot of targets, this actually gives you so many more Fire Blasts, which is incredibly awesome for the playstyle in AoE, where, you know, you are usually hard casting Flame Strikes, which is, I guess it's okay if it's like once or twice, but it would have to be like a lot of times normally. But having Fire Blasts up more often, you can just like, you know, double Fire Blast into a Flame Strike, which is particularly cool, unless this can also turn into a situation where you shoot Fireballs in AoE and you get more procs with Fire Blast to launch those free Flame Strikes, which I particularly love. And since we cannot really talk about Fire Mage playstyles without mentioning the capstones, you have some of the coolest Fire Mage playstyles that we've had over the years. You may recognize the Sun King playstyle, which is obviously, I think it's on the left-hand side, together with Pyroclasm, where you can have like some hard casting Pyroblast that sets you up for like this cool moment. Listen, this is actually cool. However much some people might be opposed to hard casting spells in, you know, high octane combat, casting that long ass Pyroblast, whether it's with the Pyroclasm proc or with Sun King proc, is just cool, because you know it's like, oh, it's happening, it builds up to that one moment's like bam, then you have combustion, man, and it's oh so cool. Or you can go the other way on the right hand side of the talent tree, where you have Hyperthermia, where when you get your hot streak, you have a chance to make all of your Pyroblasts and Flame Strikes free for a couple of seconds. This is the crazy bit of Fire Mage that I love. Listen, if you're gonna go crazy, combusty, flamey, all the way, might as well go Hyperthermia, man, where things just go nuts. The one little gripe I might have with this is that it's not always obvious when this procs, because since it lasts for such a short time and you don't want to be hard casting fireballs during that accidentally, I could love a bigger visual cue as to when this procs. Obviously I can just use a weak aura to showcase this for me, which is not that bad, but considering with all of the cool things that they've added to the UI, where we just need fewer and fewer things to augment our playstyle, I feel like a much stronger visual cue for this would be so ideal. And listen, maybe you don't want to complicate yourself with all of these hard casting, responding to proc super cool, and you just want a stable, steady, consistent rotation. You can just go the Fiery Rush playstyle, which is all the way on the middle, where all of your combustion augments are there anyway already. So you can just go Fiery Rush and you just have like more solid combustion windows. And together with the Alexstrasza's Fury talent that I mentioned before, you just have like back-to-back procs. This is the cool Fire Mage that I was hoping to play so many years ago, when I was like, man, my name is Flame, but I keep playing Warriors and DKs, and this doesn't make sense. I need to brand myself properly for our Marcelian&Flame channel, and it just didn't work. But now looks like Fire Mage can be really cool. Not to mention that its damage is still pretty well tuned, and obviously we're still gonna have, tuning over the course. And if you've watched any of the recent interviews with the devs, you know that they are looking to optimize talent even post-launch, which is good, because it feels like they're constantly holding the specs in their hands, like, oh, this needs a little bit of help, might be a little bit too strong, just nerf it down a little bit. But hey, as long as it's not into the ground, Fire Mage is likely to be one of the meta specs, because it just mashes so well with pretty much all of the content ever designed in World of Warcraft, and it could be the best ranged main for you. Pure fun, baby. Thank you for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, patrons, for supporting the content, and we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.